Hi guys, welcome to episode 40 of the Yoshi and Lucy Knits podcast. My name is Denise, and so it's been a few weeks since my last episode, but I have quite a bit of stuff to share. And instead of, I didn't want to wait too long before I recorded another episode, and I found some time to record, so here I am. So I might as well just get into my FOs right now. So, first thing I did show you, it's this giant shawl. So I finished my starting point shawl by Hohi Locatelli, and it's too big to fit on the screen. But yeah, I finished it like a few days after I recorded the last episode, and it's big. It is really big. I still have to weave in all the ends, but it is blocked out, so it grew even larger. It's so large that it didn't fit my drying, mats. I had to use a towel to put half of the shawl in. So I knit this out of my yarn and a whole bunch of different colorways, as you can see. So I had this as a kit last year when she released this as a mystery knit along. So I came up with these colors based on information she sent out to indie dyers of the colors she chose. So I just kind of went from there, and I didn't know what kind of pattern it was going to be, how it was going to look. But I think this goes really well together. It's not as much of a contrast as some of the other people's shawls. That's okay with me. So yeah, this is an interesting construction. You have to knit two pieces. So you start on this side, and then you keep knitting and knitting, and then you do again on this side, knitting and knitting, and then at some point you have to connect these two pieces together, and then continue on this side, and then continue on the opposite side, and then you got a shawl. So yeah, I've never knit a shawl that way before, and that was interesting. So yeah, it didn't seem like it was gonna be that big because, I had these two pieces separate, and then at some point I connected them, and I said, "Oh man, this is this is gonna be huge." And this has been out a year now, and I've seen everybody's projects, but seeing it in person, how big it is another story. So yeah, I have this as a sample. I have the kits in the shop now still as a pre-order on a few bases, and yeah, I like it. So I'll have this as a sample in any future shows I have and whatnot. And I do want to take some nice photos outside. After I finish weaving in these ends, it's taking me forever because I don't do it as I'm knitting, So I just procrastinate and don't want to do it. So yeah. So my second finished object, which is a knit you guys haven't seen because I knit this in like a week. So I did the Turn a Square Hat by Jarrett Flood. It's a free pattern, and knitting it in two different colors. So I knit this hat for Ryan maybe like 3 years ago at this point, and in all wool yarn, and so he has the hat and he wears it like every winter, and at this point it's kind of getting fuzzy. It's kind of not looking as nice anymore. So I said I would knit him another hat, and I said, pick out the colors you want. And he wanted the Dark Night colorway, which is the gray speckled with black and yellow. And then he said he wanted it with a blue striping with a blue. So these are like almost the same colors as his other hat, but it has, more gray. So I knit this in my worsted weight and I knit it right now instead of knitting it, you know, when it's cold, because I really needed a sample for the trunk shawl I had a few weeks ago, because I don't have anything in worsted weight. So I knit this in like about a week, and so yeah, I like it. It's very, you know, more of a skull cap type hat, but I like it. And so yeah, I'm gonna use this as a sample, and I'll give this to him at Christmas. So at least I'll have it for a little while to show people. Because that's the thing, if I knit gifts for people out of my yarn, I can't keep it. I have to give it to them, obviously. So yeah, I like the decreases on the hat, and I like how the two colors go together. And I knit a pair of socks for him in these same colors. So I did the blue in for heels, toes, and cuffs, and then the body was knit in the dark night colorway. But he really likes that colorway. This is his favorite colorway that I've ever made. So he always wants me to knit him something out of that. And so I have a ton of yarn left over. I probably have enough to make another hat if I wanted to. I don't know what I'm going to do with this. So there, that's that. And now on to my whips. I started the fading point shawl, which is another pattern by Hohi Locatelli. It's pretty slow going. I think I've started this like 3 weeks ago. I haven't knit that much of it, but so here it is. This is my first fade ever, which is like, I feel like I'm the last person to not knit a fade at this point. So the darkest color is Queen Mother, and then I started fading it with Countess, which is the next color. And it's a very subtle fade, but I like it. And I'm up to the point where I need to add the third color, and so the next color is Lady, which Countess and Lady are kind of really similar, but then the next two colorways are going to be, lighter, much lighter than this. So I had problems with the lace, like I normally do. So I didn't have a problem up to here. Here I was fine. Then when I was up to here, I don't know what I did. I think when I was at the stockinette portion, or the garter portion, I didn't have enough stitches. You're supposed to have like 171 stitches. Because it's not going to get any bigger at this point. And I was off by 1 stitch. So when I did the second part of the lace, I was off by a stitch. And I think I literally spent the whole afternoon trying to rip it out and trying to figure out what I did wrong and all that stuff. But I'm good now. So the thing with lace is like, you're off by 1 stitch and the lace is going to be messed up and it's going to be very noticeable. And I don't want that. So, so like the starting point shawl, you have to knit 2 of these. It's a similar construction, but it's not going to be as big as the starting point. So I have to knit 2 of these and then, knit them together. Very excited. And I'm knitting it in single ply because I don't have anything in single ply. And I don't know. I offer single ply in the shop and it's just doesn't really sell. So I don't know if people don't like single ply or what, but it's just by going by some of my trunk shawls, people don't want to knit single ply. They're afraid it's gonna pill, which can happen. But like, I think if you're like knitting a shawl, you'll be fine. I know people have knit sweaters in single ply. I probably would not, but I don't know. I enjoy knitting with singles every now and then. So yeah, that's why I cast this on. Yeah, I haven't been knit on this all week because I had to cake up the third color, and I just been procrastinating. I should just skein all of them up, or cake all of them up, I should say. But I don't like caking yarn. I don't know if that's your case as well, but I just find it boring. So um, I was knitting on it, and then it just said change to color, third color, and I said oops. So I didn't have it on hand, so I didn't knit on it. Um, so my second whip, I finally cast on another pair of socks, and I was just looking at my stash, and I bought a ton of Knit Picks Felici at Vogue Knitting Live in January because Knit Picks had a booth, and I wasn't really looking for their yarn, but they were having it on sale, and they had colorways that they don't offer anymore on the website. So yeah, I picked up, I think, about 5 different colorways or something like that. So I cast on this one, which is their Cheshire Grin colorway. It's a reference to the Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland. So yeah, I was knitting on I'm doing an afterthought heel, so I already put in the waist yarn. But I was knitting the leg, and I didn't have my measuring tape on hand when I was knitting on it, because I'm mostly knitting on it when I'm working, and my measuring tape was very far away from where I work, so I just kept knitting it and knitting it, and I realized at some point that yeah, this is gonna be a really long leg. So then I measured it, and I was like 7.5 inches long, and normally I knit my legs 6 inches, so this is gonna be a pretty large sock, considering that I need to knit my foot to fit my size 10 foot, big feet. So these are gonna be gigantic. So hopefully I have enough yarn. Now I'm gonna have to do the toe, maybe a different color, whatever. So yeah, I just in the mood to knit plain socks at the moment. I really think that like knitting socks are like my comfort, my comfort knitting, and I try to knit when I'm working, and I can't knit on lace when I'm working, so I have to really concentrate. So that's why I picked these up. And I'm a big fan of these self-striping yarn. So speaking of self-striping, I do have some acquisitions. So I picked up some more yarn from that D-Stash store on Etsy, which is called Apron Addict. So I don't know if she's going to do any more D-Stashes, but I always check her self-striping to see what she has, because I like self-striping yarn. And I was amazed I was able to get these 2 colorways. So I finally have some Jinx yarn. I've always been a big fan of Jinx yarn, and just never gotten any of it. So this one is her Power Sock base, which is a BFL nylon. And I like how she explains like the stripe sequence, the colors that are going to show up. And then this one, I was amazed that she was going to give this up, but this is her limited edition colorway that she came up with for the anniversary of her company. So she's only made 120 of these, because on here it says this is number 29 of 120. And this is her confetti and champagne colorway, which is a merino nylon. Yeah, and I kind of don't want to use it because it's like, oh, there's only 120 of them in the world. I'll probably knit this one first. That's what I'm probably gonna do. So yeah, I'm excited about that. So on to something different in what I normally talk about in this podcast. And recently, I've been wanting to get back into sewing. I have a sewing machine. I did a few years ago, took like a sewing class. I did like sew some project bags, and then I just kind of stopped. So I have all the stuff, I have all the supplies, but I don't know. For me, sewing is like I have to kind of force myself, or it's more of an effort to sew because there's so much, pre-planning. You gotta lay out, wash the fabric, lay out the fabric, cut it out, like all these steps before you actually get to the sewing, and that just kind of puts me off. And there's just so many supplies you need, and you need the space to lay out your fabric, and it's all that. So I just kind of stick to knitting, but I do want to sew more. Um, for reasons that I'm going to explain now. So I checked McCall's website, and they were having a sale. So I just went a little bit nuts and got a bunch of patterns. Even though I have a bunch of patterns that I've never used, but I wanted to find some sewing patterns that were a little bit easier and friendlier, so I can start sewing some garments, because I've only ever sewn like pajama pants, and that's it. So I found these two shirt patterns. So this is supposed to be learn to sew for fun. So it's supposed to be a pattern design for a beginner. And then this one, Butterick Fast and Easy, is a beginner's pattern. It says it's very easy. And I actually found a YouTuber. I don't remember her name. I'll put it down below if I remember to look it up. And she has a very detailed tutorial of this shirt pattern. So I think it's maybe like 2 hours long, maybe more than 2 hours. And she explains everything from like how to measure yourself, what size to pick, explaining all the fabric choices and what goes well with the fabric, cutting out the pattern, all that stuff. So it's like completely designed for a newbie, somebody who's never done that. So, and I watched it all, but I kind of had it on in the background when I was working, so I wasn't that concentrated on it. But it seemed very detailed, and when I'm ready to sew this, I'm gonna watch it again and get to sewing a shirt. So some of the other stuff I got. So some of the other stuff I got was lots of dresses. I'm really a big fan of vintage style dresses and clothing. I have a fantasy of having a vintage style wardrobe. I don't know if that would happen, but I like them, and that's like kind of my style, but I don't tend to dress that way because I don't really need to be wearing fancy dresses every day, but that's what I like. And I kind of, there are like vintage or like retro companies that sell dresses, but I don't like the materials they use, and some of them are like extremely overpriced. So I'd rather learn how to make it myself and pick the fabric I want. So yeah, that's my fantasy, to have a vintage style wardrobe. So I picked up a bunch of dresses. So here's Butterick. Here's a Butterick. This is a 40s style tea dress. I'm more of like 50s style. That's my preferred era. So here's a 50s style dress, and I picked up this one because I saw on I think it's called patternreview.com, is where people review sewing patterns. Somebody had sewed the bodice in like a Star Wars print, and then the skirt was in just like plain black print. So I can like make this extremely nerdy and do like some maybe Spider-Man or Wonder Woman or something. It's the bodice. Um, whenever I get around to it. So yeah, there's that. I picked up this one because I really like the fit. This is from 1961. So it's a reprint of a pattern from that year, and I just really love the waist. That really this style of dress is exactly for my body type. Like I'm a pear shape, so this is perfect for me. And I love that it has sleeves. I don't like to wear sleeveless dresses, but every time I go to the store, that's all I find. So um, I tend to wear them with a cardigan or something, just because I don't like to show off my arms. I'm like, I don't like that. So, so this dress would be perfect for me. And I picked up another vintage style dress, and this is actually a sew along going on right now. But I'm not ready for that right now. Once I get there, it says it's easy, but once I get to this pattern, I'll look up the sew along just to see if I can do this. So yeah. So the reason that I'm trying to get back into sewing is because my grandmother is having her 90th birthday this year, and we're gonna plan like a huge party for her. And since she was born in 1929, we're gonna do like a 20 style party, and everybody has to dress in 20 style, you know, dresses and stuff. And I was just looking at 20 style dresses, and they're all like they're all too tight fitting. They're too short. They have fringe. It's just like when you look it up, like accurately, like what did they actually wear in the 20s? It's all wrong. So they, you know, they at that point they did wear shorter dresses from the 1910s, but you know, maybe showed off the ankle, and it wasn't form fitting or anything like that. So I think if I'm gonna dress that way, I would want to be more accurate for the time period. I'm sure nobody else in the party is gonna care, but I will. So I was just looking at sewing patterns, and I found this one. This is a butterick pattern. So it's loose fitting. You see, it's not a form fitting outfit. It's a long skirt and everything. So hopefully I can get to this stage that I can sew this. If not, I'm gonna have to ask people to help me, because I'm very shaky about my sewing skills, if you haven't figured out by now. So hopefully this is gonna be, you know, progression to get to this stage. So my idea is to, you know, sew a project bag, sew some shirts, sew a simple dress, and then at some point I'll probably, you know, hopefully be more comfortable, and then I can do this dress. So wish me luck. So her party is going to be in January. So my goal is to get my sewing ability well enough to be able to sew this. So, and another reason I also want to, you know, sew my own dress is that my grandmother was a seamstress for many years, and so I feel like that would just be really cool that I made the dress, and she would be very impressed by my sewing skills. So wish me luck. So I think the first shirt I'm gonna do is a Colette pattern I found online. It's a free pattern. It's the sorbetto top, and I already bought the fabric for this. So this is like a rayon shirting fabric, and yeah, so that's gonna be my first garment that I'm gonna sew. I think the first thing I'm gonna do is a project bag, but once I get that pattern printed out, and I'll get started on this. And I am doing the sleeved version. Like I said, I don't like sleeveless shirts or dresses. So yeah, um, I sound I sound very nervous, but I don't know why. I'm just not as comfortable with sewing as with knitting. I feel like with knitting, I can I'm self-taught with knitting, so everything I know, I feel confident that if I don't know something, I can just look it up and figure it out on my own, or I just rip it out and start again. So yeah, I feel like sometimes I'm gonna mess up this pretty fabric, and then it's gonna be over. Even though I can go and buy more of this, but I don't know, that's how I feel. So yeah, that's my segment on sewing. I hope you guys don't mind. I don't know if there's people out there that sew. Probably won't be in every episode, but if I actually get around to sewing these projects, I'll show them when I'm done. So yeah. So on to some shop news. So I had my trunk show at Annie and Company about 2 weeks ago, and it went really well. It was on a Friday, so it was kind of an odd time, but I did pretty well, and I brought a ton of yarn, and they also are now stocking my yarn in sport and worsted weight. So if you're in the New York area and want to check out my yarn in person, you can go there. It was my first time in that store, so I don't really go on, that far north in Manhattan. To me, that feels like, once I get past Midtown, to me it's like, oh, it's too far. So that's just how I feel. So I don't really tend to go uptown. So yeah, there's a nice store and everybody was nice. So that was good. I do have a new colorway. I talked to you guys last time that I was gonna make some like tropical inspired colorways. So here it is. And it's called Amazonia, named after the Amazon rainforest. And specifically these colors, I based it on the blue and gold macaw bird, which is a bird that is native to the Amazon. And actually there is, and unfortunately people trap them and sell them and keep them as pets. So there's actually one of these birds in my neighborhood. He lives in a store, and they keep him in the window like all day long, and people walk by and talk to him or whatever. So yeah, I actually went over there and like took a video of him, just to see him in person, just to get inspired. And I think I captured it pretty well. So I used some new dyes that I picked up. So I tend not to dye with yellow. It's a little bit out of my comfort zone, but I really liked how it came out. So yeah. So another colorway that I came up with, which is technically, I don't really want to say it's mine, but if you guys heard about the Tits Out Collective, which is being run by Countess Ablaze, which is a yarn company based in the UK. So they came out with a colorway that was named, if I want exposure, I'll get my tits out. And that was named because of a bad incident of somebody wanting free yarn and wanting yarn and not wanting to pay for it, but saying that they can get them exposure. And that tends to happen with small businesses that, people just want stuff for free. So she came out with that colorway, and unfortunately, according to her, somebody then bought that skein and then tried to copy it and try to sell it off as her own. And that that happens sometimes intentionally, sometimes not, because there's only so many colors out there, and a lot of indie dyers tend to use the same dye. And yeah, that's why I get a little paranoid. I don't want anybody to accuse me of that. So I sometimes I tend to not want to look at other people's colorways, especially when I'm like right about to come up with some new ones. Um, so she decided to turn that bad experience into something good, and um, she offered that colorway out to everybody. So all indie dyers and or pattern designers or bag makers or whatever, if they wanted to make something based on that colorway. So she gave out a list of what color she used, and then everybody can just do their own interpretation of that. So I don't have all of the dye she used, so I had to like swap some stuff out. But here is my version of it, that I'm calling Tit Kat. And so this might be out already. I don't know. I'm recording this the day before the colorway is being released. So everybody's releasing it at the same time. And with the requirement that a percentage of the sales have to go to charities. So I'm offering this $5 of the sale of each skein. The charity I picked was Empty Cages Collective. And if you guys have been around, you know that I used to volunteer there, and I have videos of their old space that they had in Brooklyn. And almost all my cats were rescued by them. So yeah, I felt like I had to pick them because I have, my company's name is Yoshi and Lucy, and I wouldn't have had them without them. So yeah, and so mine I think came out a little bit more on the pink side. So I started out with like a pink base, and then I just kind of overlaid a lot of different colors. I used a different yellow than what she used, and I used purple because I love purple. That's what she used, the same purple. And I did some speckling on there. So here's a little, you can see it on the yellow a lot. So I did speckling of purple and yellow and some orange in there. I think it looks really cool. So I have a limited supply of this in the store, and if they sell out, I'll open up pre-orders for like almost any base you want. Or if you don't want to wait, you can message me on Etsy, and by the end of the month, I'll tally up all the sales all the money I made, and I'll donate a percentage of it to Empty Cages. So I'm happy she's doing this because that it just people gain exposure, and then we also all coming together for a good cause, and I feel like we definitely need that recently. So hopefully I'll get some more exposure and sell more of these games so that I can donate more money to Empty Cages, because that's really what I want to happen. And I really like a lot of the people's versions that I've seen. I definitely need to buy some yarn on Sunday. It'll be cool to it's just nice cool to see like everybody's interpretation of the colors she used and how everybody comes out with different things. So yeah, that's cool that we're all coming together to turn something bad into something good, So yeah, I think that's it. I talked about everything I wanted to talk about in this episode, and I think it's going to be a little bit longer than normal. So yeah, I hope you guys are good, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.